everyone, I'm Joanna Penn from thecreativepenn.com and today I'm interviewing Lindsay Buroker. Lindsay is the author of the Emperor's Edge fantasy series, as well as the Flashgold series and a number of standalone books in the fantasy and steampunk genres. Lindsay is also a full-time indie author as well as a prolific blogger. So welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So first up, tell us a bit more about your writing and publishing journey.
Okay. I was kind of one of those people that was with a workshop and everything for about probably 7 years off and on before getting serious. But I was really dreading the idea of looking for agents. And, I didn't really think that I wrote anything that was popular or that agents were asking for. In fact, a lot of them on their sites on Query Tracker, I think it was, they would say, please don't send that fantasy with the elves and dragons and, sort of the George R. Martin, Tolkien kind of stuff. They're like, just don't send any of that. We don't want to see it at all. So that was kind of a downer. But I was going to give it a try because that's what you have to do. And I remember joining a workshop an agent was giving on query letter writing. And then about the same time, I got my first Kindle. This was fall of 2010, and I found Joe Konrath's blog.
As we all do.
I would say within like a week, I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing this. This is what I'm going to do. So by the time the query letter workshop ended, I'd already decided. And I think I sent out maybe 5 queries as part of the exercise. But by the time they were even coming back, I'd already hired a cover art designer and an editor. And December 2010, I got my first novel online. And actually, I got both of them up within a couple months. And they weren't related, so I didn't have that serious thing going to start with. But so that's kind of how it started.
And then you have also, on your blog, you talked about turning down a deal. So maybe you could talk a bit about that.
Sure. It would have been, let's see, this was about March or February of this year. We're 2012 now, and I'd published 3 books by then in my Emperor's Edge series. I've been trying to write really prolifically, and I've been managing about a novel every 6 months, and then some shorter works. But so I got contacted by a new editor from Amazon's 47 North publishing arm. They were just starting up for fantasy, science fiction, maybe horror, maybe not. I don't know. And that was their new imprint. And she had read the Emperor's Edge books and was very interested in them. And she saw too that I had a blog and a Facebook page and sort of the platform. So she was interested in picking them up. And, I was definitely flattered. I hadn't really thought I was at that point where I was selling enough to kind of attract anyone's attention. My books would, they'd be in the top 100 for like epic fantasy, but not, top 10 or top 20. But she said she enjoyed the stories, and I decided ultimately not to do it because I was in the middle of it's a 6-book series, and by this time I did have fans from Barnes and Noble and international readers that read through Smashwords, and with Amazon I would have required that the ebooks would have only been available in the Kindle store. They would have done paperbacks that would have been other places, but that was sort of the big deal killer for me because I had this. I was about to publish the 4th book, which ends on a cliffhanger. And how mean would that be that the Nook people or the Sony people couldn't come in and read it? So I mean, I'm open to the idea of a regular publishing deal at some point in the future, but I'm not in any hurry because I did reach the point last Christmas or so that I'm doing this full time. I'm making a pretty good living, and I didn't know if I switch to a publisher, because suddenly you're getting less royalties and maybe you'll sell a lot more copies, but you just don't know. So
yeah, no, it's interesting because I'm thinking about this right now. It's kind of like I was expecting to put out the 3rd book in the series next month, and now I'm signed with an agent, and now I'm like, well, I can't put it out just in case the other 2 sell. So I know how that feels, but I'm sure people are kind of thinking, some people will be wondering how Amazon noticed you and, how you managed to stay in the top 100 of epic fantasy, because even though you said at the beginning, agents weren't that interested because of George R. R. Martin, right? The whole fantasy seems to have become bigger, and actually in the Forbes list of richest authors, J.K. Rowling is there. I guess Stephanie Meyer isn't really fantasy. Well, is that fantasy? No, it's not high fantasy or kind of epic.
Right? Kind of urban fantasy,
yeah,
or
urban fantasy. It's still fantasy. I mean, and then it's amazing how, and George R. R. Martin is in the richest list now. So have you noticed there's been a change in the genre? That's the first part of the question. The second is, how do you make the top 100?
The first thing is, and I kept expecting it, like when I was looking at agents, I thought there would be more agents that were interested in the secondary world fantasy, because the Lord of the Rings movies were also huge. And you have George R. R. Martin on his HBO special, and his books are doing so well. But I think a lot of the agents grew up reading this stuff, and they see a lot that's derivative, and they're just maybe tired of it, or maybe they don't really know, because there are it's not a huge niche, but there's definitely a following of people that really do like the otherworld elves and dragons, and I don't actually have elves and dragons, but if I did. But so there's definitely a following. So it did surprise me that I guess what's really popular in fantasy right now is the urban fantasy, contemporary stuff, paranormal romance. So if you write those, I think you have a better shot at finding an agent just out of the slush pile. But as self-publishing, if you do well enough on your own, then they'll kind of find you. So,
and so let's talk about the top 100, and the fact that, and a lot of people would say, "Oh, I'd love Amazon to come knocking at my door." So, how do you think you have broken into that sort of top 100 and the full-time living side of things? Is that platform? Is that volume of books? What do you think?
It's definitely hasn't been any one thing for me. It's been kind of a gradual build. And, before this, I did the professional blogging thing and affiliate marketing. So I knew the importance of having a mailing list, a newsletter. So now basically when I have a new book that's ready to come out, I've got I think I'm up to about 1,400 people on my newsletter. So I just say, hey guys, new book's out, go check it out. And that alone will get you up into probably I would say the top 20, it gradually falls down again. I'll be curious when I start a new series with a book 1, if I could maybe catch more people. Because I think when people see you have book 4, book 5, they're not necessarily wanting to start there. And if you haven't finished the series 2, I know some people don't want to get into something until they know the author's actually going to
finish it.
With an independent author, even more, they could just go away. So I definitely think that having that newsletter, and I will, at the end of my books, I encourage people to come find me on my blog, come sign up for my newsletter. Here's my Facebook and Twitter if you want to chat. So I think that sort of that afterward place is really where you can get people and sort of build your community based off of that, rather than trying to randomly get people to follow your blog or your Facebook that you just kind of butted your head into their conversation on Twitter or something, like, hey guys, come follow me.
I think what you've just said, and I go on and on about this, and still so many authors don't do it. So thank you, Lindsay. But, we're going to challenge everybody listening now. If you do not have a list on your site and at the back of your books, go do it now. Because as you said, and this is how John Locke has his success as well now. He has about 10,000 on his list from an email he sent out, and as soon as he has a new book, he emails everybody, people buy it, and as you say, you go straight to the top of the charts, because it doesn't take that much, does it? Within an hour, considering they change the rankings every hour, if you get people to buy on that first day, you can be a bestseller very easily.
Right, and it's like, your first book's going to be hard. There's just no way. You really have to go out there and hustle. I usually tell people you got to try to hand sell those first 1,000 copies or so. At that point, the Amazon algorithms kind of see that your book is selling, and they start recommending it, and it appears in the auto bots. But the first book's going to be hard. But after that, if you've done the right thing, if you've said, come sign up for my list and come follow me online, and people have enjoyed it enough to do so, the second book is going to be easier. And with each successive book, you're going to have collected more fans and more readers. And so, it's definitely not overnight success. And I know a lot of people want that and believe in that. And I suppose there are a few flukes where that happens for people. But it's more realistic, I think, to just think, well, I can build a career if I just keep putting out good stories that people will enjoy, and I keep in touch with my fans. And
No, and I love that, and I love that you're in, in that fantasy side of things. You're not the romance, erotica, whatever. So you're still making this living whilst in this smaller niche. So I love that. So let's talk about some other things. So I really find your blog really useful. I recommend it, and people should go and check out your blog. But you interview people and you talk a lot about how things are changing. And you did an interview a while back about the Amazon algorithms with a guy called Ed Robertson, and that kind of went around a bit. But I know you stay up on these things. So can you talk a bit about the Amazon algorithms? You mentioned a bit about it just then, and how things have changed and how you think that's impacting pricing in particular.
Okay, well, first let me say I'm not an expert on this. I did interview those guys. I do like to kind of see what's going on. And I guess there's a small group of people, and Ed is one of them, and they really just like to check the stats and compare information, and they love that stuff. And I just want to interview them in the details. But so it's sort of the last few months, it seems, because with like Amanda Hawking and John Locke, that they were sort of some of the early people that set their book to 99 cents. And this was sort of a tool that indies had because traditional publishers couldn't afford to do this. Publishers. What would I know? Couldn't afford to do this. But so it was sort of an advantage because, of course, readers want a good deal. Who doesn't? So you'd have these millionaires they sell 1 million copies, and a big part of it was that they were 99 cents. And, at the time, not a lot of people were 99 cents because Amazon, of course, tries to make $2.99 to $9.99 sort of the golden, price range you want because of then 70% royalty. But if you're selling 1 million books at 99 cents, even 35 cents a book is a really good deal.
Yeah.
But so when I interviewed Ed, it sounds like, though, that Amazon is starting to weight things a little bit. Not on the bestseller list. That's just how many books have sold in the last 24 hours. But they have also these popularity lists. Apparently, this is what they use to kind of make recommendations, and their popularity lists are very prominent. If you're just surfing through Amazon and you click over on the left menu, down through a category, they'll show you the top 100 most popular. And that seems to be more of a factor of all the sales within maybe the last 30 days. I think that's what Ed told me. This was back in about May we did the interview. And it's like Amazon's kind of like Google, and they're always tweaking and changing their algorithm. So who knows if any of this is still true. But one thing they noticed was that in the popularity list, it wasn't just based on books sold, that they were starting to weight things as for the prices. So a 99-cent book wouldn't have as much weight as a $4.99 book in the popularity list. So you'd have a situation where it'd be popular or possible to be maybe number 10 on the bestseller list, but maybe number 50 on the popularity list because you are 99 cents, and here's these other books at $7.99 or $4.99. And it's like you can still do well with a 99-cent book, but you have to sell a lot more copies of it to see the same sort of benefit as you did earlier as far as recommendations. And my guess would be that Amazon is just trying to make sure they continue to make good money because obviously they make 65 cents or something on a 99-cent book, and they have their charges. They have to pay for bandwidth and merchant services and so they're probably trying to encourage people to sell their books a little higher would be my guess. But it is as indies, we've used that 99-cent price point as an advantage over traditional publishing. It is a little bit of a hit to probably the community.
So I've put my books, after that discussion, I put my books up at $2.99 because I thought, I don't want that whole waiting thing to come into play. But I've only got 2 books. You've got more. What are you doing with pricing?
I actually started at $2.99 also when I first released them. I think like a lot of indie authors, I was a little bit afraid or uncertain that my books were worth as much or, I'm a new author. I can't get that much money. But now I've got them all at $4.95 with the exception of the first ebook, which I give away for free. And as an introvert and somebody who hates pushing myself, I find it a lot easier to kind of promote. If I say, oh, hey, it's free, so check it out if you want to, but if you don't, no big deal. And I've found that I get a lot more people trying out the series, and more of them go on to buy the next books in the series. So,
No, I think that's great. So to do that, you just have the book free permanently on Smashwords, and the price on Amazon has adjusted.
right.
Yeah.
And I've heard of people sometimes have trouble getting Amazon to price match. I think they pay a lot more attention when it's a book that's already selling pretty well and has pretty good reviews. I think probably they have their little robots or bots or whatever maybe monitor and check on prices more often.
Mm.
Because when Emperor's Edge to free, it was almost overnight because I remember I did it around Thanksgiving thinking, oh, it'll go free by Christmas maybe, and that'll really help. And
Yeah. No, I think that's great, and I think particularly for fantasy authors who have often have six or more books, it's a really good strategy. And something I would like, I'm planning. Well, I'm actually planning seven in the thriller series, but if I sell them, it'll be difficult. But I actually think that's a really good strategy. So have the first one free rather than 99 cents, and then have the others at a higher price, so you're using 4.95, which is great. So you must be that's like what, 3.50 or something per book.
it's about 330 something.
Yeah, so that's brilliant. So and this is the difficult thing for people, it's trying to work out what they're doing. So when did you change your prices? When did you become more confident in yourself as that writer?
Well, I think when I put book three out, I bumped them up to from 2.99 to 3.99.
Hmm.
And then I don't know, they were doing pretty well. I was like, well, let's just try 4.95, and it didn't make any difference whatsoever.
Mm. No,
I
yeah.
at that point, I know some people will try even higher, 7.99 or whatever, but I like that I can make a nice income, and at the same time, there's still a deal compared to traditionally published books. And my novels are all over 100,000 words, so they'd be like
Mm.
450 pages or so as a paperback. So it's not like they're short either. So most people, I've definitely had people say, "Oh, you're not charging enough. Can we pay more? Can we donate?" And I'm like, "No, no, really, I'm doing pretty well. Just we need more out. If you're only selling maybe 300 or 400 copies a month, and I don't mean only like, oh, that's so easy, but 300 or 400 copies a month of each title, and I know there's quite a few indies out there doing that. You're looking at 5 to 10,000 a month in income, and most places in the world, that's a very reasonable full-time income. So,
And that's brilliant, and I hope everyone's paying attention, because that's exactly the point. So you have a few books in a series, you're pricing them sensibly, you still have one at free. I mean, you're not doing anything outrageous here. You're just putting out consistently good books, and people like them, right? I mean, I think that's the secret that we're all looking for.
it depends on how fast you write. It can be a slow, gradual build if you write only a novel a year. If you're able to write 3 novels a year, 4 novels a year, which I'm not there, but you can hustle things around, get things moving more quickly. But it's the same route, no matter how quickly you write, will work. It's just
Yeah.
patience is required, and I know that's hard.
It is, and it's funny because I interviewed the agent Donald Maas a while back. He wrote the Breakout novel and all kinds. He's a big New York agent, and he said that in traditional publishing, you have to have 3 to 5 books before things really kick in, which is interesting because nowadays new authors only seem to get one book try, and if they don't hit it out the park, they're kind of gone. But what you're saying seems to back that up as well. It's kind of, so how many do you have right now?
I have 4 novels in my main series, one standalone novel, and then I've got a couple of novellas and short stories. I like to, if I can, publish something in between, like those 6 month gaps, to, it keeps your income going because, of course, you get a big boost whenever you have a new release. Everybody goes to get that. And it keeps your name in people's minds, and they're excited to talk about your work on Facebook. And somebody started a fan forum for me now, so that's really.
Oh, wow, congratulations.
There's people posting fan fiction and fan art, and it's just so exciting and flattering to me. I thought you had to be George R. R. Martin or somebody really huge to have a community like that start up. So
Wow, and we we really think, oh no, I'm blown away by that, because when we think about what success is, and we mentioned George R. R. Martin on the rich list, earning 20 million this year, TV series. I mean, most of us can't even imagine that kind of success, right? But to have a fan forum about your work, I mean, that's precious.
Oh, I know. So I was just so flattered, and I stop in there, like, "You guys have any questions?" And I find them very funny people, hilarious people, which my books are kind of quirky. I have that sort of sense of humor too, so it makes sense that. But they'll just be cracking me up. They'll be on Twitter in the morning, and I get included in these little, conversations they're having about the characters in the books, and some of them even made Twitter characters, or on Twitter they've made my characters have Twitter accounts, and they'll chat back and forth. And I kind of like, oh, people will think I'm all six of these people on Twitter. I'm like, not me.
No, I think that's brilliant. And so, I mean, that's exciting. And something else exciting I wanted us to talk about was, you're in America, obviously, I'm in England. The Kindle, Amazon Kindle is pretty much, in England, it's the most dominant force. We don't even have Nook yet. We do have Kobo, but obviously in America, Nook is quite big. But just yesterday, Amazon announced they're opening a Kindle store for India, and they're also opening up the KDP back end to Indian authors. Now, I think this is huge because there's such a massive Indian population of English language speakers, and I don't know anything about them, whether they like fantasy or thrillers or whatever. But what do you think about the expansion of ebooks beyond the US and the UK, and what do you see coming up in terms of opportunities?
Definitely, I think it's very cool. I think like so far they've done France and Spain, I think, and the UK, and I'm starting to sell pretty well in the UK actually. They must think my American spelling is atrocious, but but really I don't know anything about India as far as what people like to read there. Would fantasy be big? But I've definitely been, surprised by how many people are reading my books and finding them often through Smashwords is big with the international readers.
Mm.
I had people from South Africa, several countries in Africa, lots of countries in Europe, people in Asia, just from all over the world that have picked up the books and enjoyed them. And, it's surprising that how global it is, that you might not even get that with traditional publishing, where your deal would probably be for starting, for probably publishing the books just in the US for me, or in the UK if you had a UK agent. So it's really interesting with ebooks how it's global, and anybody. And I've even, I can't remember who it was, but I've heard of indie authors who have actually footed the bill to have their work translated into, like, I don't know, was it Chinese, or, I can't even imagine how much that would cost. But I think if you're doing well enough, sure, why not? And you never know.
I think though, like you're saying, that the English, a lot of people in other countries read in English, and that's an opportunity. But I actually think that it's also with pricing. It'll be interesting with your $4.95 price, because the Amazon store for India is in rupees. So with the conversion rate, it would seem obvious that indie books will sell more in India than traditionally published ebooks because of the price difference. So if your book is at $2.99 US, I don't know how many rupees that is, but it's obviously more in their wage bracket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was kind of wondering too if you would, because Amazon lets you pick your price for if you know anything about the exchange rate or anything. I was wondering if I should price it less expensive over there, just because I think that the average earning salary is quite a bit lower. I know that a lot of people in the online business will have VAs from Asia, and some of the countries where the standard of living is a little, or I guess the price of living is just less expensive, and maybe $800 might be your monthly salary, like a really good monthly salary, but it costs less to obviously to rent that and everything. But so I was thinking, well, $5, would that be a really expensive book over there? Maybe I should try to figure out.
But the problem with that, the problem I see with that, and this is because of course you go into the back end and you can click now to put it in rupees, but Amazon price matches, don't they? So that if you change the rupee price to make it cheaper, won't they change the US dollar price to match?
I don't know. I would think not, just because I don't think they're out there looking at the exchange rate in other countries and monitoring that.
Oh,
But
I don't know.
yeah, you log in one morning. Why books only 13 cents? What happened?
Yeah. But no, I want to also ask you about Smashwords and about the other platforms. So, I read on the Kindle and I love the Kindle back end. I think it's brilliant. And I don't, because, Nook Puppet isn't open to people outside the US. So I don't really like them, but I'm on them. But what do you see in terms of a percentage split between the platforms, and have you found any good ways to promote on Nook versus Smashwords versus Kindle?
I'm definitely am one of the people that gets the most of my money from Amazon, probably about 90%, maybe
Okay.
85% now. It's gotten, I've been selling more at Barnes and Noble and a little more at Kobo and Apple. I actually did a screenshot of my ebook. I found it in Apple's Epic Fantasy section, and it was actually on the front page next to, George R. R. Martin and some of the other new ones. But that doesn't equate to the amount of sales as at Amazon. Because I think a lot of iPad people, because I have an iPad and I read on the Kindle app.
Me too.
I think that a lot of Apple people use the Kindle app, and it seems Kindle's a more friendly store to browse through and find things. But yeah, I think maybe 5% of my income from Apple, 5% from Barnes and Noble, and the other 5% from Smashwords, Kobo, and the other little ones combined, Sony, and then about 85% from Amazon.
Mm.
As far as how to do well, I started doing better there. I sold practically nothing at those stores until I did the free ebook. So I think it's the same thing there. People browse for the free stuff, and then if you can hook them with your first one in the series, they're gonna, more likely go on and try the other ones.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. And yeah, I mean, I think people are so overwhelmed with how many options, and there are new companies springing up every day now. And in fact, I get a lot of emails saying, which company should I use? But I mean, you're still, and I am still, with the main ones. The recommendation is still to go as direct as possible with the actual distribution sites, or use Smashwords. So have you seen, the changes in this whole self-publishing space? Where do you think it's going?
Well, I like to do everything myself, or, hire somebody to do the formatting and that sort of thing. But I've seen a lot of businesses cropping up that want to cut.
Yeah.
That help authors by handling all the distribution and cover art and formatting and all that for them. And I think that's okay if it's a fair price. Some of them are a little ridiculous, like $1,000. Like what? For formatting and distribution, basically. So, I think there's more and more people trying to get in on it. And I've had people contact me from little up and coming e-stores that want to, they're like, oh, come, hey, list your book with us. And, I think probably like you, I have so much going on that that's not really a priority. I look at their site, and because I do have that internet background, I kind of just glance at the Alexa rating for the site and the Google page ranking. I'm like, okay, my blog gets way more traffic than this site does, so there's no way that they're going to sell probably any books. But, I don't want to be too dismissive of them, but I think if you just stick with the main places and try to get your work out there where there are a lot of eyeballs. Another thing I've done is the Podio books. I have the first couple of my series out there on iTunes and Podio books for free, and I've had quite a few people tell me that that's where they first found my work, and they went on to buy the ebooks. So I think the more marketplaces you can be in, where they're busy marketplaces, and there's a lot of reading.
That's interesting, and I know we're almost out of time, but on the Podio book, so for people who don't know, it's an audio book. You basically download it. It can be serialized, or you can download it all at once. Did you record that yourself?
I did not. I actually hired someone to do it because I didn't, it's a lot of time. Of course, from a podcast that it's a lot of work to edit, and I just couldn't imagine sitting down and taking the time to do it. And I got a pretty good deal on it because I kind of plugged the site. It's Darkfire Productions on my own site. And they're pretty, not that affordable if you're brand new and starting out, but I think I've gotten back what I put into it. And I also ran a Kickstarter campaign this past spring and that will cover book 3 and book 4 being turned into audiobooks. So, but I have met people like Nathan Lowell. I interviewed him on my site, and he's another indie that he went with Ride Publishing, but he does really well, and he built his fan base entirely from putting like his 6-book series out on audiobooks, so that when he went to release his first ebook, he had a huge fan base built up from that. So it's another way that you can stand out, and because it takes more time to do it, to edit and read the book, there's less competition in that market, so a little easier to stand out.
That, it's really good you brought that up, because I've had Scott Sigler on the podcast, who of course was also, does all of his books on audio, and a number of other people, T. Morris, and, and I love it. And I keep thinking I must record a book, but I'm interested to hear that you hired somebody. So that's a good alternative for people if they don't want to do it themselves, because of course you have to know all the production side as well. And I think Nathan's were full productions, weren't they?
Yeah, and he did it all himself, but he really seemed to enjoy it. I guess he has really sort of that narrator, orator voice, and he's even done a couple for other people. So for people that enjoy it, definitely you can save a lot of money doing it yourself. I think maybe about $200 to get a really good mic and a good setup, but it's definitely more affordable than. But even if you look at it as an investment, if you hire someone, maybe it depends on the length of your book. Usually, but let's say it was like $1,500 to $2,000. That's an asset you have for the rest of your life. And mine are about to go into Audible, so probably eventually that'll make that money back in sales of the audiobook too, in addition to helping promote my work.
Yeah, and sorry, can I ask on Audible, how are you getting into Audible? Because you can't do that as an independent unless you've got more than 5 books. Is that right?
I'm not sure, but the Darkfire Productions guys have a contract with Audible, so I'm just going to them. So, and I think that there's ACX or something like that.
Yeah, that's ACX is also only for Americans.
Those pesky American companies, they're so snobby.
It's like the rest of us don't exist. I mean,
like there aren't readers from all over the world that want to, it's crazy. Hopefully they'll figure it out.
Exactly. Well, look, first of all, tell us a bit more about your books. We know they're not elves and dragons. What are your books about?
Sure. One reviewer called them the A-Team of Steam. So kind of a Steam era Industrial Revolution world, secondary world. And my heroes are these kind of wrongly accused outlaws that they're trying to clear their name, and also at the same time thwart plots against the emperor. So, and like I said, I've got quite a unique sense of humor, and I've been told my books are pretty funny. So, adventure, heroic fantasy. First one's free. Anybody wants to try it?
Fantastic. So where can people find you online?
I am so everywhere. My site and my blog, lindsayburoker.com. I'm on Facebook and Twitter, and I'm even on Pinterest now. I've got my fan art up there, so and of course on Amazon, the books and everything are there. But if somebody comes to my blog, all my other links to Twitter and everything are on there. So
fantastic. Well, thanks ever so much for your time, Lindsay. That was great.
Well, thank you for having me.